I want it to seem so simple, but then like you can't figure it out. My name is Zuriel Waters. I'm a painter and I guess fabric sculptor. I was born in Philadelphia, but I grew up mainly in Portland, Oregon. And then I moved when I was 16 to San Diego. And then I went to school at Rhode Island School of Design. I was always interested in some kind of something creative. My father's a composer, so initially I went to school for music, but I always drew. And I drew comics and things in high school. To art, well, I always drew. I thought music programs are a lot more rigorous. They're a lot more like about practice and you know, kind of like getting someone ready to like maybe play on a cruise ship or something. Whereas the art programs are a lot more like about your own personal vision and stuff. So it was easy to convince a young person to switch from the more rigorous, restrictive program to the more, you know. But I think also that music is a lot more, it's just a more intuitive thing for me, and it's harder for me to sort of make compromises, whereas with art, I think I can do that more easily. It's not as, I don't feel like I'm giving up as much or something. I guess it's related. I mean, I never really think about it, although people tell me that they look musical, and sometimes they look like music notes even, and I mainly play saxophone, so there's something about the forms which are very like this sort of like bell shape, or this sort of like ballooning bell shape. But to me, music is really like kind of like the antidote to the studio in a way, which is so like solitary, and it's just like you reflecting back at yourself in the studio so much. And then when music is like, you do it with other people, it's like bouncing off of them. And I was trying to describe the forms, and I was thinking about them. I mean, normally in this show I was trying to learn more about how to make horizontal shapes, because I'm really more of a figurative. The way I think about them is really vertical, and like as if they're like aliens or some kind of robot or something, but something that sort of like has a head and legs or something. So when I started trying to understand how they would look, how they could be horizontal, it was hard because I think of them as floating, and so that's why they can be like aliens or robots or something. They're kind of like levitating. And then when they became horizontal, I was like, what are they? Are they like lying down or something? Or what is their like emotional, like, what does the pose emotionally mean? And I was like, they can't be lying down because they are floating. So they're not like laying on anything. And then I started to think of them, I was like, okay, they're kind of like clouds, or like maybe even like the Japanese paintings of clouds or dragons in the sky or something like that. And then I was like, but they're not really in the sky, they're like in the water. They're kind of like these underwater forms. I'm just going through this sort of chain of logic. And then I was like, well, what's a cloud that's underwater? And there's these swarms of moon jellyfish. That form they call clouds, you know? So there'll be like a big cloud of moon jellies. So I was like, oh, moon jelly, like that's kind of a interesting name. But then I was talking to Jenny, my wife, about it, and it just didn't seem like the right name for a whole show. It's more like singular. So that became the name of the last piece I finished for the show. And then in turning the words around to Jello Moon, it became like this other thing, almost like Harvest Moon. And to me, it references sort of almost like a, I don't know what, like a kind of like almost like a 50s space age optimism or something, like Jello, and the Jello forms, like when there's like a Jello, I don't know, like there's Jello molds that have this kind of Art Deco curvy shapes to them and stuff, and like the colors of all that, and just the colors of the era. And Jello Moon, it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of silly, but it's, I think, hopeful and in that way, yeah.
My name is Harris Berger. I'm from Long Island, New York. I'm an illustrator, and I work here as an art handler and registrar at Catherine Markel Fine Arts. I love Zuriel's work. It does feel like it's floating to me. They feel like kind of angelic, like these ascending bodies. They also remind me a lot of graffiti, especially the horizontal ones. You know, like living in New York, you know, graffiti is such a big part of, you know, the visual language here. And so yeah, they feel like home, and they're just fun to look at.
Recent one, and I was saying that this is the one that I ended up calling Moon Jelly, which was kind of like the original name for the show, which is kind of, that's the other thing, is that like I've been putting more of these like interior shapes in, and this I kept thinking of as like a moon in like a midnight dusk sky or early morning, which is really pictorial, but you know, and then this is like a star in this like weird, it's like a blood red star in like a khaki sky. So it's like, you know, it's like astrological or something. It's a cosmic being. It's like stars and moons, but they're reduced so heavily, they're almost like things you'd see on a flag or something like that, but they're still technically those things. Or I mean, they're not technically those things, but they're symbolically those things, potentially. So, I don't know. I mean, that's one thing I was sort of playing with, I guess, is like how much can these look like something that's really ordinary, but then those ordinary things actually like sort of referencing really, I don't know, like surreal or deep concepts in a way. I don't know. Anyway, the construction of this one, I've been trying to change the way that I paint so that I'm using a lot more of what you'd call a pigment dye rather than like an actual paint application, which basically means that you're just treating the textiles with the glue or the acrylic and then allowing the pigment to sort of bond directly to it rather than sort of putting a sheet of glue or acrylic on top. So it kind of like penetrates in and then like pulls the pigment into it. And it's actually, the more that I've been trying to like understand like the distinction between painting and dyeing, like you want to use pigment for things that are gonna see a lot of sunlight, because pigments are stronger against UV radiation. Of course, dyes penetrate a lot more easily and create more homogeneous surfaces. So, but as I've been sort of researching it, it's like jeans are essentially pigment dyed. And not only that, but they're treated so much. Like when you see raw denim, you're seeing, you know, the dyed thread, but that's not jeans that you buy. Then they're treated with some type of acid or whatever, and then a stabilizer, usually a resin, actually, and sometimes even an acrylic resin. So jeans and clothing that we're used to like thinking of as like raw textiles are actually paintings. That's what I've, so anyway, like why does that matter? It's just that you want the material to be flexible, and you want it to be strong, and you want it to withstand light and all that. Because when I'm constructing them, they get punctured and they get bent and they have to fold and all this stuff. So the actual, you know, integrity of if I'm painting them like a painting, they end up a little bit fragile, is I guess what I'm saying. When the needle goes through, it can tear, and when it's folding, it can break. And so to me, like developing, like having a color, it's like becoming something where you're not just like choosing a color. It's like it's a marriage with the textile it's on. And so the color and then the durability of it and how much it's in the weave of it becomes like I don't know, it's like a more like integrated version of color mixing, I guess. It's not just like an abstract idea of what a color is, like it's physical. And then the more that I like make my own clothes and everything, the more I realize like a lot of these colors that I'm trying to mix, they're almost half of it is the color of the material that they're on, that you're seeing, you know? So it's not just like this, oh, I mixed this indigo color. It's like that color is this type of dye, but on this particular type of textile. So all that together. So I'm trying to get it to be less basically opaque and trying to get to these like bright, opaque looking colors without a sheet of acrylic and without like lots and lots of white, which ends up being a little bit more like a, in a way, like a watercolor style of painting. I'm used to more like layering up and like building a color up towards brightness. And this is like you start at brightness and you work subtractively and you work down, which is, for me, really challenging. Like I actually really don't like painting that way, but the benefits are that you end up with this like strong, stable, like fabric that you can work with. Like now I can cut it up and like, you know, bend it and use it to make even like the hinges here, you know, without it breaking too much. So that like when it folds over, it's still like the same, if you know what I mean, like the paint film, it's not breaking and showing off the inside as much as I can. It still does a little bit, but yeah, it's a little technical. I don't think of them as like project, like they're just one piece to the next, but yeah, like they're heavily, you know, it's every piece is like pushing the iteration forward. They're almost like app updates or something. Like they're really all, every single one is like a improvement, or I'm trying to improve something. I mean, sometimes like with updates, you hate the improvement and you know, you wish you hadn't done that, but still like every time like there's problems, there's technical problems I'm trying to solve. And right now what I'm working on is getting rid of the top stitching and altogether. So I'm trying to, I've just been like the one I'm working on in the studio right now, I'm instead, because on the inside of all of these is like a panel that I've sort of developed and it's changed. Every one of them has like a different version of it. Like this one has actually a layer of industrial felt that pads it out. So you can see this has like a little bit more of like a puffiness to it. And I was doing that for a few of them and then I stopped because I didn't, first of all, it seemed like it was hard to get. That at Silk Road where I was getting it from, the guy told me he only had one roll left and I was like, I don't want to depend on something that I won't be able to get a lot. So I switched that from being a full sheet of industrial felt to just wrapping around the perimeter edges with just felt. So these have like actually just like felt wrapped around just the outside edge. So that's, anyway, to get this structural integrity or whatever, the way that I'm trying to do, if it works out, is like sewing a facing on instead to the back and then like pulling it around, almost like it's like a double-sided piece. So far it seems like it's working, and the nice thing about that is that like you don't need a top stitch because the tension or like the torque of like pulling it back around on itself holds the shape pretty flat. And I will still use hangers and everything to hold it flat to the wall, but yeah, that's the main thing I'm thinking about right now. Like the whole like star thing, like I thought I was gonna keep developing that and I think I will, but I don't know. Those are more, like the structural thing is really more what's, because now I've figured out how to make the paint act more like dye. So now I can have that kind of thing operate more like a garment without it breaking. Because it was so much more before you had to treat it like a painting with a paint film and stuff. And so now it's like, oh, like, and other things, like, and I can have the shapes come off the side without having the top stitch interrupting them. So I don't know. It's a mess. We'll see. We'll see what ends up happening, but I've been trying to get rid of the top stitch for a long time, which I think a lot of people are surprised by because they like it, but it's just that I see them without the top stitch when I'm making them, and I'm like, oh, I love this. And then I put the top stitch on, I'm like, oh, it's still pretty good. I want it to seem so simple, but then like you can't figure it out.